All right, hey guys, welcome to the Price Sell Paint podcast. This week, Michael and I are going to talk about good, better, best versus one price. I mean, this is a big discussion we've had in our industry, and we want to dig into this, give you the pros and cons, and really examine what works for your business in the process. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Price Sell Paint, the go-to podcast for painting contractors and sales professionals in the painting industry. Hosted by industry experts Jon Bryant and Michael Murray. This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Price Sell Paint podcast. I am Jon Bryant. This is Michael Murray. We're here today to talk about good, better, best. This is a fun topic, one that we've seen in the Price and Painting Projects Facebook group that PaintScout runs. It's one that we hear from customers all the time. People in our network, people doing sales. Good, better, best. Does it work? Should we do it? All of those fun questions. Let's chat about this.
Yeah, man, good to hang out. I love it. I think it's a very interesting topic. I know that in a lot of other industries, it is generally like accepted practice that's kind of the only way to do it. I think a lot of times in the painting industry, it seems like maybe kind of a novel concept. It's also just trying to figure out if we do want to do this, like how can we do it well? What are some ways that we can offer different packages, if you will, versus, maybe just asking the customer, I guess, what is it that you want? And here's a price for that, kind of one price versus maybe multiple options.
Yeah. So, I think the thing we've, kind of thought about over the years, I know you and I have discussed, is just like, what is the approach that works best? What's the approach that leaves the customer feeling like they have control? There's got to be a reason why people do this in other industries. And is it confusing? I think are kind of some of the questions that come to my mind. So do you guys do it, Michael? Do you guys give options, packages?
So we definitely give options. I would say we do not have like a formal good, better, best system, mostly because it feels a little forced to me, which I haven't figured out a way to do this that doesn't. But it's not because I don't see the benefit to it. I think, one of the industries that I like to study a lot is like the HVAC space. It's similar in that it's very like home service, home improvement based, blue collar, local services, local companies, very similar to what we do, residential or commercial kind of stuff. And this good, better, best like strategy, if you will, is very prevalent there in the HVAC space. And I think the biggest like challenge I have, we're getting a new air conditioning unit at my home. So we have a company that comes out, they check on our stuff every 6 months or whatever. And they told us, a couple months ago or whatever, hey, you guys got some leaking going on in your system. It's like 15 years old. It's time to get a replacement. And so they send me over a quote and it has, 3 different options on it, right? So that's, for the sake of argument, think of that as good, better, best. The difference between the 3 options is essentially the like manufacturer of the equipment. And each of those generally have like different warranties and things. And the option that the sales rep suggested was actually going to save me some money because because they like are certified with this company or whatever, they're able to offer a longer labor warranty on it, even though it's going to save me a little bit of money. But I think generally speaking, like the idea behind this concept is if we offer like 3 different options, good, better, best, it's going to allow a customer to choose which option from Textbook Painting or whatever painting company that is utilizing this should I go with versus choosing between 3 different companies. Mm-hmm. Is that your understanding of kind of like the pros of doing something like this?
Yeah, it also puts the control in the hands of the customer, which is always a good thing. At least that's the perception of it. Now, you still said like the salesperson still had to guide you, because like honestly, our customers are not experts in our product. That's why they're hiring us, right? Well, some of them might be, but it's like really they're just trying to figure out what to do. And good, better, best, I think, can build trust because the customer now gets to decide. They're not just being told what to do. And so, like, I think a big struggle in the painting industry is that people show up and they just assume what project the customer wants. Yep. They create a price for it, and then the customer is like, "Oh, that's lower," and then they come in and they're like, "Oh, actually, everything's change orders, everything's different," and you lose the trust of the customer, and that customer gets jaded, right? And so, having control, I think, is good. Now, I would ask you, Michael, like if that HVAC company came in and just gave you one price, would it have changed your experience with them? Obviously, they're a known company to you.
Yeah, I think
That would
that
have been different.
yeah, to the point you just said, right? So I do certainly like rely on their expertise because I've been working with them for years. They've
Hmm.
done other work in my home. It's like a lot of the HVAC companies. They do some plumbing, electrical. So, when I've had a couple other little things going on that I couldn't do myself, that's generally who I'm going to call to do those things. But I think like some of the challenge that I have with it is kind of the experience I have, right? Where they give me these options and I just simply said to the sales rep, like, all right, like here's kind of what I'm looking for. Here's, we plan on being in this house for a while. I'm not necessarily looking to just make like the, save some money like option here. I do want something that's really good. Like, what would you do? What are your recommendations? You're the expert here.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's a lot of times what we experience when we go out and meet with a client. It's like if we end up having like a good conversation at the beginning and get a really good idea of what their needs and expectations are, what their the pain points are that they might be experiencing, how long do you plan on living here, things like that are going to help us to recommend like, okay, so it sounds like you're going to be here a while. You probably want a paint that's going to be a little bit more durable, something that's going to last you a little bit longer, something that we can feel comfortable putting a good warranty on as the company. Okay, great. So based on this, I'm going to come up with a price to do what you're talking about here.
Hmm.
And then I think like the adjustments that we make are typically around like the areas in the substrates. Like maybe we don't need to paint all of the rooms in the house. We could save you some money by painting just maybe the most pressing areas. And then next year we could come back and do some of these other ones,
Hmm.
which is slightly different, I think, than what we think of when we talk about good, better, best.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, there's also there's I always see good, better, best as like there's pros and cons in the sales process. One is that I feel like I have control, but two is someone who's done a lot of sales and kind of understands it. The psychological effect of good, better, best, which is like price. What do you call it? Price range bounding, is that the word?
Banding.
Or like banding? Sorry,
Yeah.
you're trying to like essentially create the middle option as like the one that you really want the person to pick, anyways.
Yep.
It's like, oh, this one way too much, and this one's way too little. You should go with this one. And so I always get a little bit like, I'm like, oh, you guys are using good, better, best.
Hmm.
Like, okay, cool. I know what this is all about. So which one should I use? Oh, the middle option. Oh,
Shock.
crazy, shock. Oh, wild.
Right.
So what did the sales manager tell you? So like, I kind of in some ways I've become jaded towards
Hmm.
it. Not to say that it's not like an option that customers enjoy. I just know that it's a little bit better than going to McDonald's and seeing like the small, medium, large cup. Like that price is fixed, right? Like that doesn't
Yeah.
change. It might go up a little bit, but I know from like if I go in Monday and I go in Friday, that price is the same. I'm just not always convinced when I'm dealing with the trades that's the case.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm not sure, like, that's just me being jaded from sales, where I'm like, I just want someone to work with me to tell me what the best is. And if I trust them, I'm going to use them if they've built the package that I'm looking for. Not to say though that I wouldn't use a company that does put good, better, best either. It really comes down to trust in the end for me, and it can be lost any place in the sales process. So that's my feeling on it.
I,
But yeah, sorry,
Well, I
go
was going
ahead.
to say, I mean, I think what the challenge that we've had, because we have spent a lot of time here at Textbook trying to come up with ways to do this well, offering different products, offering different warranties and things like that. And what we often come back to is like, how much are we willing to like water down, not literally, but figuratively, or maybe literally depending on the type of paint you might be buying, but it's like how much are we willing to water down like the experience we want to give our customers, right? Do we want to be
Mhm.
like the premium best option in our market with the best warranties, we use the best products, we're going to give you the best experience, and yeah, we're going to cost more money than maybe our competitors, but you get what you pay for? Or are we trying to like capture a bigger percentage of the potential market size so that we can get more of those customers that are maybe more price sensitive and maybe don't necessarily care about the best paints or the best primers or whatever, and they're willing to sacrifice maybe the warranty and some of that kind of stuff. And it's just like that's where we struggle a lot because it's like we know in our heart of hearts that like if I don't know, let's just say like we're going to use like a premium paint from Sherwin-Williams, whatever. It doesn't, let's call it Emerald. And we're going to use maybe a middle tier paint. Let's just call that, duration. And then our lower option is going to be maybe our super paint. On a typical paint job, we're looking at, I don't know what, 15 gallons, 20 gallons of paint. Does that sound about right to you?
$5,000 job, 10%. You spend 500 on paint. How much per gallon for paint?
And so it's like, how much difference?
Yeah.
What is the price difference for somebody that with a contractor's account at Sherwin-Williams? Like, what are we talking? Maybe $10 or $15 a gallon
Uh-huh.
difference between those, right? For the sake of whatever, between super paint durations, about $10 or $15. Even duration to emerald, $10 or $15 or less might even make my point. Where it's like, so the options I give that client are going to be $100 to $200 different based on that.
Mhm.
It's just like, I don't know that. Is that like the goal here? Are we trying to give a customer, it's like, for $5,200 you can get this, for $5,400 you could get this, and for $5,600 you could get that? And it's like, I don't know. If I'm like a client looking at that, I'm just like really, like, just which one do you recommend? Like, which one should I do here? And then we end up right
Mhm.
back to kind of you know where we started.
So let me play the other side for
Sure.
here for a second
Yeah.
on this argument because
I would love
um
to be able to do this well, to be clear. I'm not like,
oh yeah.
I see the benefit of this. I have not figured out or seen a painting company that is doing this really well. And again, I'm sure
Mhm.
that it exists. I'm not there yet in my like understanding, but I conceptually, like, I get the value in doing this.
For sure. Yeah, and I do too. And we've dabbled in this over the years for sure as well. And product seems to be the place where it has the most impact. But what's funny is that so you talk about it as being like, $200 difference. Does the customer know that? Like you in theory that is the
Right.
difference. Like it's really minute, but can you create more of a value difference based on that?
So you're saying essentially like upcharge more on the more premium products, and kind of, so instead of like whatever I just said a minute ago, but like 5,000, 5,200, 5,400, or whatever, you're
Yeah,
saying is like make it 5,000, 5,506, just for the sake of something to talk about.
exactly.
And sure, on that $6,000 price, you are, should be significantly more profitable, because like the actual difference in your price and your paint cost is not that much. That's kind of
Mhm.
what the point you're bringing
That's
up?
essentially,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we have this thing in our industry where like we talk a lot about product and whether you mark up product and whether you should, and it's like you don't go to the obviously this is my opinion. So for those listening, take it as you will. But that same HVAC company isn't going to give you the machine for free and charge you for the labor,
Uh, sure. Okay.
or like not for free, but like no markup on the machine,
Okay.
like on the and so
Okay.
they are obviously marking up that work and that material. And I think there's some barriers in our industry to thinking about material as if it's like it should the customer can get it on their own, so therefore we shouldn't mark it up. And I think there's room here for value, like perception of value, and whether it's just paint, whether it's warranty, whether it's a different type of ASAP scheduling.
Hmm.
There's a bunch of options we have around our service as well, and I think that it's quite common to devalue those things and say like, oh, they're not. We couldn't possibly charge any more for that. And I'm always one to say, you know what, let's think critically about this, and I think we can, as an industry, charge more for it, and create that value difference for our customer. Because honestly, like the customer doesn't know; they just want to pick what they believe is the right fit for them.
Hmm. The question though that I come back to, which I brought up a minute ago, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, either as somebody who, like, play devil's advocate if you want, but it's just like,
Yeah.
so if I strongly believe that, like, let's just use those three examples, right? Every paint manufacturer offers this, right? Like,
Hmm.
as a consumer, as a painting contractor, we are the customer of Sherwin Williams and Benjamin Moore and Behr and PPG and insert all of the companies, right?
Yeah.
They are selling to us. They have a sales rep who comes out and meets with us and does the little dog and pony show and blah blah blah. And it's like, they offer this, right? They
Hmm.
have good, better, best options.
Yeah.
If you go to Sherwin Williams, they have like 50 options, and I guess they kind of all do. And so it's like, fair, but the like, as the painting company, right? Am I okay with, like, again, maybe what I consider to be an inferior product that is just not very high quality, am I okay putting my name on that? Am I okay
Mhm.
saying, yeah, we'll do that, but we're not going to give you a warranty. We're not going to really stand behind that work. It's just like, but we can save you $500.
Mhm.
And I just feel, and I'm like, I have a hard time there. Right.
Do you think in your like your example of the HVAC
Okay.
company, do they have the same issue? Like, is that lower grade option worse?
I mean, the prices were really similar, right? So
Okay.
all
Yeah.
of the prices were between 7, 8,000, and they were a
Mhm.
few $100 different.
Yeah.
And so that's why part of the reason I was just like, oh, like, I don't, I didn't even honestly, like, there's, a list of all the specs on, all of this technical stuff on there. And I'm like, I don't honestly I don't want to understand this stuff to that level. Right. And I think most people that are getting a painting job done are very similar, right? They don't want to talk about like the percentages of whatever chemical goes into the paint and all the different, binders and things. It's just like which one's gonna last longer? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of which one's more durable? Which one's gonna, when my kids put their hands all over the wall every time they go up and down the stairs, like which one am I gonna be less likely to see those handprints from, in a year or two
Yeah.
or whatever? Right.
Right.
It's that's the question in their mind. And that's kind of like where I'm coming from with, buying as an HVAC customer here. I'm just like, all right, look, like I don't want to do this for a while. We're going to be in this house for a long time.
Mhm.
And I'm not looking to save like $300. I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, this is a fairly expensive price point, right? $7,000 or $8,000. Again, very similar to maybe buying a painting project. I don't want to regret saving $300
Yeah.
because it doesn't last for, it lasts maybe a year or two less than the other one would have. That's going to be the most expensive $300 that I've spent
Mhm.
or saved or whatever. And so it's just like, that's what I just said to the guy, like, what would you do? Like, which one do you recommend? and, and I think in my, like the experience that I had, it would be the argument that like the good, better, best thing was just kind of silly.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I just said like, all right, what do you think I should do? And he's like, yeah, you should do this one, which wasn't,
Yeah.
which was essentially like the good option,
Mhm.
right? He
Oh, it was
recommended,
like
he's
the
like,
lower
yeah,
one.
you can just save some money. This is actually just,
Hmm.
really good. We can give you a better warranty on this one. I was like, "Per- perfect. Best of all the worlds. And it made sense to me.
So I think what one thing I'm kind of taking away from that, and it just made me reflect a little bit, is that the real benefit here. So good, better, best. What it does is it opens a conversation,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people. I don't know if you've run into this situation, but you're bidding a job, and someone and you get a chance to review with the customer, like your bid versus another one,
Mhm.
and the other bid says they're using Benjamin Moore paint, and you say, well, which paint? Oh, they're using high quality. It's Benjamin Moore, and like that's the customer's
Sure.
knowledge of what paint is,
Yep.
and similar to your knowledge of HVAC,
Yep.
which is, I mean, mine is about what does it even stand for, HVAC? Anyway,
That's the
um,
hot and cold air in your house, John.
finally someone told me. It's like we get to have a conversation, and so whether good, better, best actually like structures it properly, at least we're able to say, look, we've listed out maybe a couple of paints for you to choose from, and I get your point. Like, I don't want to be associated with a bad job. Like, that's not what our brand is. Now there is, like, somebody just wants a apartment painted quickly before someone gets in there. Not a big deal. We'll talk about that for sure. But for the most part, our customers don't understand the paint, and nor should they. And for a lot of them, it's just okay if it says Benjamin Moore. That actually means high quality.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, it could be, I don't know what the lowest grade of Benjamin Moore is.
But there is
I
one.
know there is
Yep.
one, and it's really bad,
Yep.
and that's probably what you're getting.
Yep.
And so I found that even if the customer doesn't really care about or understand the product, and nor should they,
Mhm.
at least we're talking a little bit about the fact there is levels of paint,
Mhm.
and that a brand name doesn't equal guaranteed success of what that actually means. So that was one benefit from us actually doing it.
Doing the good, better,
Now,
best.
doing the good, better, best for paint.
Got it.
But I arrived at the same point you did, Michael, which is that I just wanted to give my customers what they
Yeah.
wanted, which was really a great paint job. it was so much cheaper for us anyway. Like the cost difference isn't that much. And look, you trust us because we're a quality name, and so we're just going to give you a quality project. And putting
Yeah.
Super Paint on, our sales team will mention like, hey, look, this is just a cheaper, like this. You want a cheaper price? That's what's important to you. Use this brand of paint because that's what you get. So maybe we're missing opportunity, but that's where we've arrived to right now. So
Yeah, and part of, I mean, you brought up the point that it's like what this does is it forces the conversation. It allows a
mhm,
sales rep to maybe ask some better questions and have a conversation, which again, I think is the point. That, if that's not happening, if you show up to the customer's house and they say, yeah, like we want these 3 bedrooms painted, and then the response is like, okay, great. I'll, give me a little bit here. I'll have a price for you.
mhm,
Um, that's a problem. That is not necessarily a great consultative, asking a lot of questions, figuring out exactly what somebody wants done. And so if you do that, and then you're just like, all right, great, like here's the price. It's, whatever, $2,500 to paint these bedrooms. And the customer says, oh, okay, like thanks, we'll get back to you. And you leave. And then you call them a week or two later and they say, oh yeah, we found somebody to do it cheaper. Like we went with them. And you're frustrated. It's like, and then you have a conversation. They're like, yeah, like we actually had somebody that can do this for $2,000. And then you might say, well, what kind of paint are they using? Right to the point that you're just making. And
mhm,
they're using, looks like Promar 200, and you had priced it for, Emerald. And you're just like, well, wait, like I could do it for around $2,000 with Promar 200 too. And they're like, oh, we already signed with them.
mhm,
And it's just like, yeah, yes, that is a really bad job by the salesperson. As opposed to like, we go there, we have let's get there, sit down at the kitchen table, if you will, or whatever, and have a conversation. And, what's important here? Do you want this to last? Are we, about to sell the house in a month or two, but we just need a quick freshen up? Yeah, like Promar 200 might make sense, but if you're like, going to be, oh, it's just a guest room. Nobody's ever really in here. Okay, cool. We might not need Emerald or, Aura or, insert whatever. Yeah, that is probably some conversations to be had, but again, I think it's like, can we do that without the good, better, best? Yeah, I think for some sales reps, yes. But perhaps to the argument you're making, it makes that conversation easier.
for sure. Yeah, and I think even just thinking about right now, like if you can build that in as your thought process when you're actually meeting with the customer, it's like I've said this before, but it's like we're building the product as the customer's trying to purchase it.
Hmm.
Like they're telling us what they want. We're trying to like figure that out, and at the end have a product that works for them. And I think as a consultative salesperson, if you can look at it as good, better, best when you're actually chatting with the customer, like it's so helpful in the process to discover what they truly want.
Yep.
And whether that's incorporated in your estimate or not, it still should be part of every conversation you're having. And for them to understand, like there's options here. Like we talk about like, price engineering a job. It's like, hey, I'm coming in at 5,500. This is like for, premium everything. Is that price and that project make sense for you? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I got to talk to someone. You're like, hey, I'm sensing maybe this isn't, maybe it's the price isn't right. Like, is this worth trying to cost engineer this a little bit, price engineer, and say like, we can, we can bring this down if you're willing to make some changes and sacrifices. And typically our kind of customers never are willing to do
Hmm.
that. But now they understand the value they could be missing out on.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer in that, whether we give the option or not, at least we're talking about options and
Mhm.
we're understanding value.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I mean, another way to like frame what you were just describing that we've taught, to our sales team is like have a conversation with a client to be able to explain like this is how I would make this price cheaper. These are some of the things that we could do in
Mhm.
terms of maybe lowering the labor cost, right? We could go and, subcontract work to a bunch of people that we've never met and see what happens. You
That's
know,
always fun.
yeah, see what
I
happens. Like,
love that approach.
yeah, that could work.
Yeah, they're
Definitely
at
would.
Cash Corner. You're gonna love them.
We could definitely save some money, right? I would
Mhm,
imagine versus maybe a
mhm.
full-time employee that has full, health insurance, retirement plan, paid time off, company vehicle. Like, yeah, that stuff's expensive.
Would you list that as an option, Michael? Like
Uh,
option
that could,
good. Just anyone we can find.
We,
Better.
yeah, it's
People we
not, we don't
know.
even have good, better, best. We should just have like bad, awful, and mediocre.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So,
like
but
that
it's
would
like, so we're having this conversation, but then we get to like the product, right? And so, we might say that, okay, look, like, yeah, if you wanted me to save you, like, if I were to do this job for less money, I would have to save some money on the cost of labor per hour. And it's just like, okay, let's just assume that like we're hiring people, my company and the other company you got a bid for, we're both hiring, skilled people who are going to show up, they background check, drug screen, do all the things, they're going to do great work for you. Let's just assume that like those prices are pretty equal. Let's talk about the paint itself, right? And so it's like I could, we're only using like the premium option here. So, I'm coming at this with the idea that we're going to give you the long warranty. We're going to use the premium. Let's just use that Emerald example or Aura or something like that. It's like, okay, like that's kind of maybe where we're coming from, but I could save you a few $100 if I was willing to sacrifice that. Maybe on the outside of the house, like we could use A100. It's not going to last you very long. It is going to fade significantly sooner than Emerald. But that's one way I could save myself a lot of money, and then I could pass on some savings to you. And then the third way, which I think is probably the most impactful, is like in the amount of like prep time and the number of coats and like the amount of labor time that we're bidding on your project. If I give my team less time to do prep work, that would be the most impactful way for me to lower this price.
Mhm.
And then we just directly ask the customer, do you want me to do that? And the answer is almost always, well, no, of course not.
Mhm.
But now at least I've like helped them to understand. I provided them with some education as to, some things that as they're getting other bids, or maybe they've already gotten other bids, and they're trying to compare, apples to apples, but it's really, apples to bananas at best.
Mhm.
The, where some of the places are that they need to go investigate, and maybe they need to go have some, ask some questions to that other quote.
For sure. Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's I think the saying that I've heard before is a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And part of that comes from understanding this process of delivering a paint job. And I love those questions. Like they're just great. Like let's have that conversation. Give the customer some context of where issues will arise and what different costs go into this so that they can actually decide what result they want.
Mhm.
Because chances are, if those same questions are asked to another, if someone writes their estimate on the back of a napkin and gives it over to them, there's about 500 questions you should be asking. But at least giving them like 3 or 4 critical ones has always been helpful for at least for us to help our customers buy,
Mhm.
because they're thinking, oh, paint job, I need a paint job, and they're not thinking about the process of getting it done and then the options they truly have because they don't know. I mean, honestly, they just thought paint job and it's a commodity in their mind, and so it's up to us to break that down. So, but I will say, I mean, maybe it's a good moment to kind of transition a little bit
Yep.
because I loved your example about the labor and bad, worse, and horrible. But let's talk maybe for those listening, like the options that we can provide customers. I mean, we've mentioned them a little bit, but how would we do this, or how have we done
Yep.
this? We've talked about warranty and paint. Let's just go maybe through step by step on each one so that everyone knows what we're talking about here.
Perfect. What type of project? Yeah, because I think it makes a big difference. If we're talking
Mhm.
interior, exterior, cabinet painting. I don't know, some of the other like main services that painting companies might offer, but
Well, let's start. I mean, we should do all three. Why not? But let's. I mean, I know you love cabinet painting. You guys do a great job at it. It's a core part of your business. Any thoughts around cabinet painting? Let's start there.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a place that we can, I can see good, better, best making sense. And the way that we do this, again, it is like very conversational. We don't just like offer all the options to all the people because that might not, it's like, let's just have a better conversation and get a better understanding of what it is that their needs are. But one of the things that we will do is, so we use a like premium Italian 2K polyurethane on our cabinets. And I think that helps to separate us in the marketplace. We offer a lifetime touch-up promise on the cabinet painting that we do, which again helps us stand out. We're very confident that the work we do is going to last for a very long time. And so, like, that's something we're not willing to sacrifice. We want to be known as the company that has the best warranty, uses the best products, and is going to give you the longest lasting cabinet painting project in the markets that we serve. And so that is what I would describe as like kind of the base option. And then from there, we can offer some like upgrades to that, which again is slightly different than good, better, best, but trying to explain maybe how we think about it. And that's going to be things like we can replace all the doors and drawer fronts in the kitchen. So that's going to
So new
definitely
doors.
push you up. What's that?
New doors, like just get new doors completely.
Yep. So we're going to replace
Yep.
all the doors. They're going to come with, other upgrades, right? Soft close hinges, new handles, things like that. Obviously we're still painting them with the same products, still give them the same warranty and things like that. We've talked about like, what if we offered something with like no warranty, or like maybe just a 1 or 2 year warranty, and maybe like some of the other products that maybe our competitors use. But when we investigate it, again, it's like, there's not that much savings, where like the amount that you save in money is, in our opinion, is not justified because of the sacrifice you're making in the quality. And so it's like, I can't offer that in good conscience, because I'm like, you just need to spend a little bit more money and get the way better job.
So let me ask you this, because I totally agree. But in terms of options,
Yep.
where has your mind gone? Like I think of initially, and we've toyed around with this a little bit, but just timing. Like we save space in our schedule. If you want to get this
Sure.
done next week, you can pay more. If you're okay to wait 3 months, hey, you can pay less. Do you see that as a viable option, or is there something else you guys have thought of?
100%. Yep. So I think, we've definitely talked about like some winter discounts and things like that, where we absolutely use scheduling as a way to, offer somebody a lower price, because it helps
Mhm.
us to meet, some of our like scheduling capacity and things like that. So yes, I think that is definitely a good way to do that for sure. Yep.
What other levers do you have there? So I mean, because it's such a premium product you guys provide, and honestly, like I think what you're saying is true, which is that you have to stand up for something.
Yep.
You have to stand for something, not even stand out.
Right.
And so, crafting your service around your result and what's important to you and the customer is important. So, what else we got? I mean, there's timing. There is there anything around like color, help of color? Do you guys do color consults on that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do. Yeah, again, like so a couple things that we do, right? So the paint that we buy has to get shipped to us, and so
Mhm.
we have like a standard color option. We have a palette that we have an interior designer on our team, so she has essentially like curated I think there's 24 colors that are like the most common, based on what's popular, based on like what colors our customers have chosen over the last couple of years, and just based on like her you know design experience and
Mhm.
intuition and trends and stuff. And so we keep those generally in stock. And so if somebody selects from one of those colors, we can offer them kind of, again, that like standard price, or we can save them
Mhm.
some money, because we know that, almost every cabinet or every painting project, there's always that like half gallon left. We can like save that half gallon from, your house, if we're, let's just call it, whatever we're using, super white. And it's just like, we know that within the next few weeks, somebody else is going to be using super white, because we only have 24 colors to choose from. And so we can bring that half gallon back, because we know that somebody else is going to use it. And so we can save a little bit of money there, instead of having to like kind of like charge for all of that. We can save some money to the client. And so if somebody can select a color that's not on that chart, and it costs an extra $300. One, to try to like dissuade them from doing that, but two, because there is an actual cost to that to us, because we have to like kind of overbuy the paint to make sure that we're going to have enough to spray it out and do all the things. I think anybody listening can kind of understand that. So
Yeah.
um,
So it looks like, I mean, there is some room for packaging,
mhm,
I guess. I
yeah,
mean, whether it's timing, I've always thought of like, we do free color consults,
mhm,
but there's got to be a premium version of color experience.
yeah,
There's got to be a way to separate that of like, hey, you know what, we're going to do a phone consult for most of our jobs, or
mhm,
like a Zoom consult. But if you want to upgrade to the better package, we actually do it in person. And if you want the best, that person's going to help come and apply paint, whatever,
Sure.
some like wild difference. And I think there's room there.
Yeah.
So I've always thought
Full
about
dry
timing.
downs of paint products and, different things like that. Yeah. I like that idea. I think
Exactly. So
that's
like that
creative.
experience is an interesting one. I think that like timing for us has always been interesting
Mhm.
because, we've been booked out so far. And so like, a cabinet job, some people want it done tomorrow.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, great. Guess what? Option A is you wait 3 months. Option B is you get it done in 3 weeks. Option C is actually you're going to get this done next week.
Yeah.
But option C is going to cost you 2,000 more.
Yeah.
And so, really, what the struggle for me with this stuff, and we'll kind of get into interior exterior as well, is that like in the case of HVAC, they've got like what 3 different types of machines, like again, like heating, cooling
Yeah.
machines,
They're kind of similar.
whatever it
Right.
is. Whereas we actually have a few more levers
Yeah.
than that, and so I've always struggled with the packaging of this because do you go after product, do you go after timing, do you go after color? And I think a lot of us focus on product, but the reality is there is good, better, best of everything we
Right.
do. So,
And that,
anyways,
yeah, I mean, that again is kind of like you have to like limit somebody's like choices
mhm,
artificially a little bit, right? Where it's just like, this is the package. So can I get the, it's like, I use a generic answer, thought or whatever that's just hit my brain, but it's like, you can get like vanilla and chocolate ice cream in a bowl or in a little
mhm.
like cup with no sprinkles. Okay. Like that's the good option.
Pass,
It's not bad.
hard pass.
If you
Yeah,
want the better option, you can get like, whatever, cookies and cream and mint chocolate chip, and you can get it in a cone. And then, the best option, you can get the cone and the sprinkles and like some of our seasonal premium flavors. And it's
mhm,
just like, okay, cool. But what if I want like vanilla in a cone with some sprinkles? It's like, no, you can't
mhm.
have that. That's not an option. You got to pick one of the packages. It's just like,
Exactly.
like I feel like why not? Like just I'll pay you a couple extra bucks for some, for that cone and the sprinkles. Like, but I can't have it. Not an option here. Got it. Okay.
Totally right. So you run the risk, right? Like when you in that other industry, they have very defined, like your service is defined pretty strongly by what you're looking for. Whereas here in what we do, like I said, I mean, it's like you're building the product while the customer's trying to buy it,
Yep.
and it's like a weird one because we in and so it's you got to pick your lane because if you create that package, like you said, like it's like this one, you get it done next week, and you also get the premium color package. It's like I don't want that,
Right.
and so I've always struggled with that to like pick exactly what the lane is for us. And if it's product, great, but actually we have so many areas of our business that can be improved or slightly taken away
Yeah.
from and try to figure what we want to focus on. So
Let's talk about
should we move
interior.
on to interior?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Interior. Anything different than cabinets, you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think one option on the interior could be like, and I've heard of people doing this, where if you're willing to like move your furniture to the middle of the room,
Hmm.
maybe like take your switch plates off, and I don't know. That's probably about it. But maybe there's one or two other little like prep things that I'm not thinking of. If you're willing to do that, I can save you some money. Like, yeah, okay, I can see that. I think I'm not, it's not really. Again, we like to provide a full service experience, but I'm not arguing against it. I can see it.
Hmm.
Like that could work, and that could be part of that. Like, good. Better
Hmm.
option is like we'll do all that for you. I don't know. Best option is like I don't know. We bring a moving company in and they move your furniture,
Yeah.
and like it's that white glove service, and they're gonna move it, into the storage pod in the driveway, and move it back in once we're done with the project. And that really expensive furniture is like perfectly taken care of. I'm just making this up, but something like
For
that maybe.
sure. Yeah. 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 I like that. I mean, a lot of customers are asking for that stuff. And again, like it's the problem for us, it's almost indicative of the wrong customer asking those questions. But if you're listening and looking for those options, I think that's something I've seen a lot of. You could go as far with that thought process as if you're doing paint, like if you're doing a paint option, it's like good option, you go buy your own paint. Better, better we buy super paint. like it's like how far down that rabbit hole
Right.
do you want to go before you're like, oh, this is actually like not the kind of project I want to do.
Well, yeah, because it's like then what happens is like I think a lot of people listening, right? If you've been doing this a while, it quickly becomes like the customer chooses the lower quality paint that has really bad coverage,
Mhm.
and they want it. They want that navy color on the walls, You can already tell where I'm going with this, right? And like, we quoted for 2 coats, normal. And after 2 coats, it looks like crap. And then you got to go to that customer and say, you chose the package that looks like crap.
Mhm.
That you chose the low quality paint that
And that's
doesn't
a fun conversation, by the
cover
way.
very
Yeah.
well. And now you just pay me for my job because I did what the package said.
Mhm.
Buy. It's like that's not a way to run a successful business.
No.
And again, that's when then we end up back to the like consultative, having to steer the conversation in the direction based on like, so tell me more about what color you're thinking, and things
Mhm.
like that. And it becomes this like, consultative experience that makes this strict like bracketing thing harder. Not impossible,
For
harder.
sure. Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Yeah. So, I mean,
I mean, I think you could offer like, again, I think, then we get into like substrates,
mhm.
right? So it could be, like package one is paint the walls. It's walls only. Package two is walls and ceilings. Package three is walls, ceilings, and trim.
Mhm.
But and then I get back to the question. It's like, but then walls and trim is not an option,
Right.
and maybe that's okay. Like, again, or maybe it's like closets included and not included. But it's just like you got to include all the closets or none. Those are your choices. That's the package. And I feel like if I had to go compete with that somebody else that was doing that, and I have a consultative approach, and I just say, "Hey, great! Like, what are you guys looking to get done here?" They say, "Well, we really think the walls and trim need to be done." The other guy said, "If we do that, we have to paint the ceiling." He says, "No other way to do it." I would be like, "What? Like, no, we can paint your walls and trim without having to paint the ceilings. Like, sure, I can save you a couple $100 by doing it that way." And they're like, "Yeah, it sounds like this guy's listening and willing to like make fairly reasonable accommodations to give me what I want. I think I'm going to win that bid."
Absolutely. Yeah. Who that just seems like a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when you say that, so we're obviously talking about good, better, best. Obviously, options is like a slightly different
Yeah.
discussion, probably. I mean, and we've talked a little bit about options we can give our customers, and but structuring good, better, best in that discussion. So, like we've always seen, like a quick aside, like options are great, like really great, but creating those options into good, better, best is a little bit more difficult.
Hmm.
So, like for example, like you come into a home and they're like, "We want the walls painted." It's like with PaintScout, you just put all the trim in, bring it into surface view, and the next thing you know, you have a price for all the trim, and you can throw that in as an option.
Yep.
It's like, hey, if you thought about doing the trim, here's what it would cost. Any interest to you? Or the ceiling. And so now you're like, you're able to give these amazing options to customers, which actually in my mind is like a huge, huge benefit to using a system like Paint Scout where you like I don't think any other system has this, by the way, where you can actually see the surface level view of what you're bidding. And so like that has power.
Yep.
So to your example, like if you're creating rigid things where it's like good, better, best, I think you're missing what the customer is looking for. But upgrade options are super, super valuable. So I don't want to miss that in the discussion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, I do want to let a client like see pricing, understand that like, again, you mentioned it before, like that the ability to make choices for themselves, because a lot of times like customers can't tell the sales rep what they want until they have some idea of what it's going to cost, and that is, that's something that we work with our sales team on a lot. Is that like once when we give a price, we don't want to just say like, okay, the price is $5,750. It's like we want to be able to have a conversation where it's like, okay, based on what we've already talked about, my price came to $5,750. But like we're really, I think there's probably an option here somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 to do more or less what we're talking about. And I've got some different like thoughts and options of ways that I can get closer to 5,000 and ways that I could get closer to 7,000.
Totally.
Is give me some feedback. Like, what is your budget for this type of project? Would you like to talk more about things that could get us closer to that $5,000 number, or are you more interested in ways that we could actually upgrade, give you a more long lasting project or a better project, but might be closer to that 7,000?
Mhm.
And and then based on whatever they say, we're going to have some different options based on maybe the paint, maybe the substrates, maybe scheduling, and some of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's a constructive conversation in terms of, yeah, helping a customer with what they're looking for, nothing better.
Yeah.
Now, but kind of getting back to the good, better, best, I mean, it does the same thing, just a little more rigid. And so trying to figure out how to work that through has been, I think, the difficulty you and I both experienced, which is how do you do it effectively?
And I want to.
Exterior
I
wise.
feel like
Yep.
I'm the person on this episode that's like kind of poo-pooing the whole thing. And I'm like, I know that I have listened to and like talked to people in other industries, and this is a game changer. Good, better, best is
Mhm.
a game changer in other industries. Again, specifically like the HVAC we've been talking about, and it perfectly makes sense to me in that space. And I have a harder time in ours because of how like custom each project is. And that's,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm hoping like, we can get some comments, we can get some conversation going. Again, this all started from, one of our Facebook groups, and, started a conversation between you and I, kind of before we start recording. And we are like, we just need to talk about this and, put some thoughts out there.
Mhm.
I would love to, maybe hear from some people that are doing this really well. So, but anyways,
Absolutely, yeah. Or if you've tried some ways we're not even talking about like that, I would love to have my eyes open to that because, not only am I looking for that as well, but I think there's opportunity for PaintScout to help,
yeah.
software to help. And we've talked a lot about that internally, just being like, what do we do here to help
Mhm.
contractors? And we haven't settled on anything in particular. And so, love the feedback. Please leave your comments. We would, for or against. Do you have great ideas about this? Have you had something that you've had success with? Would love to hear all about that.
We didn't touch on the exterior.
Hmm.
I mean, the thoughts here again are going to be very similar to things we've already talked about. Certainly, scheduling, warranty. I think it's a big one when we talk about exterior. For us, like one thing that we do, again, it's more of like an options based approach, which is slightly different, but it's in the same line of conversation. Are like paint and primer upgrades, where we can upgrade you to, maybe like a peel bonding primer or an oil primer or things like that on an exterior project. Again, sometimes it just needs that, but sometimes it's like, yeah, like we could get away with a, kind of, I don't know, basic latex primer, if you will, but there's some upgrade ability here with something a little bit better.
Hmm.
Certainly, paint products talked about.
I mean, level of prep. I don't. For us,
That's
it's always
tough.
been like we need to do the whole thing. Like, Why are you doing this project? I mean, if that's yeah, it's a hard one.
Good luck setting
Um,
expectations if that's what you're doing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
just
do 15 scraper pulls
right.
on each section.
Yeah, and then the customer's going to come out and say, "I saw peeling paint all over my house," and you're going to say, "Yeah, but you said you wanted like the good option. You should have
Yeah,
upgraded to
yeah,
that better
it's
option," which is like that's where we actually
th-
try to
30
drop it.
pulls. Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And 12 sandpaper swipes,
yeah,
30 pulls with my
yeah,
scraper. And
and
that's the best option. It's hard. And so all the things we've talked about before, I think apply like timing, color, types of customer service, warranty. Sure, you can do all this stuff, but
one of the things,
again, finding that lane that works is hard.
yeah, one of the things that we do, and you guys do, do as well, I believe, is carpentry,
Hmm.
right? And so that's an, again, call it more of an upgrade, because I keep coming back to like it's not this like rigid thing that we provide on every quote, but is like it might be in like an older home with a bunch of peeling paint, things like that, where we just got all these layers, and it's just kind of like there's only so much we're gonna be able to do to make this look good. It
Hmm.
might just be time to like replace some of the siding. Yeah, it's not rotten. Like you don't have to replace it, which is a slightly different conversation. But from like an aesthetics and longevity, it just might be better. And so that is definitely a conversation that we can certainly have with a client.
For sure. Yeah. So I think upgrades. We'll do another episode here on upgrades because I think upgrades and options are something that is super
Mhm.
impactful. And not to say that like good, better, best isn't. I think it's a great thing for us to consider. And like we've said, if you do this well, let us know. Leave the comments. We'd love to maybe if you do it well, even have you on the podcast,
Yeah.
honestly, because this is something that needs to be shared. There's a lot of opportunity in our industry. I believe it's something that we can figure out if we choose a lane, and that the industry, our sales will be better if we can do that properly. So that's my final thought, Michael. What about you?
Yeah, no, good stuff. Yeah, I feel. I mean, if I think back to the conversation that was started on on Facebook, I think we were kind of talking about the two different arguments, if you will, towards this. One is just like, of course you should do this. It's a no-brainer. It gives the customer the options, allows them to be choosy, allows them to kind of funnel towards that middle option. They're not, having to get other bids from your competitors to have different price points. Makes perfect sense. Absolutely
Mhm.
agree. And the other argument was, yeah, I'd rather be consultative. I don't want to like water down our brand. We don't want to just offer inferior products just to, you know, give a customer what they think they want, even though it's not, they might not actually understand, what they're sacrificing with that. And so I think like that was generally kind of like the, debate, if you will, that we saw, which I thought
Mhm.
was great. I think it's a great conversation, and hopefully we were able to bring that to light here in this format.
Totally. So, guys, yeah, thanks for tuning into Price Sell Paint on this episode. If you're looking for that Facebook group too, that's Pricing Painting Projects. It's a PaintScout group where we talk about pricing and selling painting projects, kind of continue this conversation on online. And so, feel free to look out for that, guys. Subscribe, like, do all the things. We love doing this for you. If you appreciate it, uh, show us. So, we look forward to talking with you soon.
This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.